So, cancer is pretty scary, especially considering that half of people alive today will receive a diagnosis of cancer, because essentially we're curing everything else that we could die from before we get cancer. In spite of its infamy, many non-scientists that I talk to don't know much about cancer at all, so I thought I'd make a video explaining what exactly it is, and how researchers such as myself are going about finding cures. So the first thing to mention is that cancer does not refer to one disease, but a heterogeneous group of diseases that share certain characteristics, which is to say that each type of cancer is different from the other, but they do behave in similar ways. Cancer is a genetic disease, which means that it results from mutations in the DNA of a particular cell in the body. The DNA contained within each cell is essentially a 3 billion letter long code, with each single unit of code being called a base pair. Contained within the DNA are certain sections of code called genes, which instruct each cell in the body how to build itself and what to do. Genes range from between 76 to over 80,000 base pairs long, and are expressed at very specific times and places, and at very specific levels. A carcinogenic mutation causes an error in the code, and subsequently these genes are expressed incorrectly, and over time these errors gradually bestow certain characteristics upon the cell that make it begin misbehaving, so to speak. You have somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 trillion cells in your body, all working harmoniously to comprise you. However, cancer cells don't adhere to this and instead are essentially only out for themselves, not caring that their success means that you die in the process. The hallmarks that a cell must acquire to become a cancer cell were very nicely laid out in a seminal paper by Douglas Hanahan and Robert Weinberg, published in the year 2000, called The Hallmarks of Cancer, and comprised the following: self-sufficiency of growth signals, meaning that they don't need to be signaled to grow, resistance to anti-growth signals, resistance to apoptosis, which is a process by which a cell essentially commits suicide after realizing something has gone dangerously wrong inside it, so it's fairly obvious how avoiding this would be beneficial for a cell on its way to becoming cancerous. Switching on angiogenesis, which is the process by which new blood vessels are formed in order to provide the growing tumour with all of the oxygen and nutrients it needs to continue its uncontrolled growth. Replicative immortality, which is where the cell reprograms itself to live beyond its natural lifespan, and for all intents and purposes divide a limitless number of times. And finally, undergoing invasion and metastasis, which is the characteristic that most people are familiar with because it's the point where the primary tumour is able to shed cells that can travel to other parts of the body to produce secondary tumours or metastases, which are responsible for approximately 90% of cancer-related deaths. More recently, in their 2011 paper, Hanahan and Weinberg proposed two further characteristics, which are reprogramming of energy metabolism, providing the cancer cells with an energetic and biosynthetic advantage relative to the healthy cells surrounding them, and avoiding destruction by the immune system. While they also proposed two enabling characteristics, namely increased mutation and genomic instability, which is to say that as a cancer cell becomes more and more deregulated, its sensitivity to further carcinogenic mutations increases, because, for example, the DNA repair machinery becomes significantly less efficient, and natural defences against DNA mutagens becoming less effective. And finally, tumour-promoting inflammation, which is an interesting one, because for a long time the presence of white blood cells in and around tumours was thought to be simply the body trying to destroy the tumour, but it's becoming increasingly recognised that these white blood cells can actually provide the tumour with signalling molecules that are beneficial to its survival, such as growth factors and also oxidants, which can further damage DNA and cause carcinogenic mutations. Once a cell has all of these characteristics and enabling characteristics, it is a full-blown cancer cell, and the later the tumour is discovered, the poorer one's chance of survival, as this increases the likelihood that it will already have metastasized. And the really annoying bit is that new therapies might be effective against one type of cancer, but not others. Take a lung cancer cell and a liver cancer cell, for example. Even though both have the hallmarks that I just outlined, there are approximately 20,000 genes in the human genome, many of which are functionally quite similar. So while a liver cancer cell can have a mutation in a certain gene, let's call it gene A, to promote cell proliferation, the lung cancer cell may have a mutation in a different gene that does the same thing, meaning that when we come up with a particular therapy that targets the lung tumour in this respect, it may have no effect on the liver tumour. So as you can see, cancer research is rather complex. Not only is each type of cancer essentially its own research area, but each of these hallmarks also represents a potential avenue of therapeutic intervention. The good news is that as time goes on, we are understanding more and more about all of this, and new treatments are being developed all the time, meaning that we're seeing improvements in survival statistics as time goes on, in spite of our ability to detect cancer increasing, meaning that overall cancer diagnoses are going up. Cancer Research UK, the world's largest independent funder of cancer research, has set the goal of 3/4 of people surviving a cancer diagnosis by 2034. And from what I can see, there's no reason that we can't reach this goal. And hopefully one day we'll get to the point where many cancers are curable, and the others, if not curable, are redefined as chronic, non-life-threatening diseases that can be controlled with drugs. Of course, this will further contribute to our ageing population, and there are many social and economic issues to be considered with respect to this going forward, but as far as I'm concerned, that's a far less scary problem to have. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and the bell. See you next time.